Hello, this is John Rinaldi again. I'm taking this video from Madrid, Spain. I happen to be here drinking sangria, sitting around on the different plazas, enjoying the sunshine. Well, it actually is a real legitimate reason for me to be here. We do have a project here where we're implementing Ethernet IP on a toilet controller in a French train. So I do have a pretty big project here, but I am enjoying myself quite a bit. Of course, while I'm drinking sangria, I'm thinking about Ethernet IP and Profinet and Modbus TCP. And, I've done videos before on all those protocols, but what I haven't talked about, I haven't mentioned at all, is really what's the difference between these guys and why would you use one versus the other? What are the advantages and disadvantages of them? So I thought I'd throw a quick video together and explain some of that. So let's start with Ethernet IP. Ethernet IP is really the simplest one to understand. The biggest difference in all of these protocols is the object model. The object model is how your data is represented on the network. In Ethernet IP, we have SIP. SIP controls how the data is represented, and the representation of SIP is objects, instances, and attributes. So, and it's just a way of categorizing your data. If you have analog I/O, you bring all the analog I/O into an object. If you have temperatures, you might want to bring all the temperatures into an object. So that's what Ethernet IP does. It organizes your data in terms of objects. Profinet, on the other hand, well, Profinet organizes your data into PLC racks. I really don't like it, but that's the way it is. It's the way Profibus was, and there's god-awful, who knows how many gazillion units of Profibus racks in the world. So every device has to look like it's a PLC. So you have slots. You have however how many slots. And then you'd have to define a module. So what's in a module? Well, this is one analog module because it's a flow meter, and you've got one analog flow rate that you have to report to the network. So it's you kind of got to shoehorn your data into this slot rack system. With Modbus TCP, well, Modbus TCP, you've got registers and coils, mostly registers. People hardly ever use coils anymore. So you got this 16-bit unsigned registers. The problem you run into there is, what if your data is more than 16 bits? What if you've got a floating point number? Well, how's that represented? Well, then it's kind of application oriented about how to do that. So the downside of the Ethernet IP data representation, well, it doesn't have much of a downside. It's pretty well structured around how you would organize your data. Profinet I/O, as I explained, that rack structure it's a little bit awkward, and Modbus TCP only has really one data type, the 16-bit unsigned, so that has some limitations. So when you talk about data representations, Ethernet IP really wins. Let's talk about speed. Speed of response. Now that's where Profinet I/O really wins. 1 millisecond response typically. You can get that out of Ethernet IP, but you really need some fast processors and really be hauling data around really fast. But the way they do that in Profinet is they found that the stack time to encode messages, decode messages, it's really taken a lot of time. So they said, well, let's not do that. Let's just take an I/O message. Let's just pump it right into the application. When you do that, you've just eliminated a whole bunch of time. So Profinet I/O is a choice for, if you really want to get good response time, then you use Profinet I/O. Ethernet IP, Modbus TCP, you can get by with those, and you can get an okay response, but not near as good as Profinet. Now, the downside of Modbus is that you can only get 256 bytes, around 250 some bytes into a packet, because it still retains the old packet structure from Modbus RTU. That was the 485 version. With Ethernet IP, there's a limitation there too, and not many people know about it. If you're working with Rockwell PLCs, they've been saying forever they're going to expand the limit, but right now I think it's still around 500 some bytes is all you can move in an I/O packet with Ethernet IP. Even though you've got a 1500 byte Ethernet packet, you can only move 400 bytes or 500 bytes into a Rockwell PLC, and even less if you're going to do Modbus TCP. So all of these guys have their pluses and their minuses, and one of the things I've always said though is that's not how the decision's made. What really is the decision is we have Siemens PLCs in our office or our factory, that's what we're going to use. We have Rockwell PLCs, that's what we're going to use. So the decision is really made on all the features and functionality of the controller you're going to support and not the I/O network. Though nowadays you can get a card to plug into a Rockwell PLC and do Profibus I/O or do Profinet I/O or do Modbus I/O. We have gateways that do that kind of stuff, but generally they like to stick to the same manufacturer of the I/O with the architecture of the PLC because it just makes support a little bit easier. So that's my summary from Madrid, Spain, of all of the different kinds of industrial networks and a little bit about how they compare and why you would want to use one or another. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'm certainly going to enjoy my time in Spain, and have a great day.